Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to the Wattsburg Area School District, where our student-centered and future-focused for a world-class education. The regular board meeting of March 15th, 2021 is now called to order. There's one person who's on the agenda to speak to the board this evening. Anyone else wishing to speak to the board, please use the question and answer feature and write down your name and your address, and we will recognize you when the time comes. Please do not use the question and answer or chat feature for any other purposes during this meeting, except for to object to a perceived violation of the Sunshine Law. At this time, would you please stand for the Pledge of Allegiance? I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. May we have a roll call, please, Madam Secretary?
Mr. Blazer.
Present.
Mrs. Farrell.
Here.
Mrs. Lee.
Here.
Mr. Mattson.
Here.
Mr. Morvay.
Here.
Mr. Paris.
Here.
Mrs. Pound.
Here.
Mr. Pushchek. Mr. Pushchek.
Here.
Thank you. Dr. Pushchek.
Here. Thank you for the roll call, and I'd like to recognize and welcome our newest board member, Mr. Stephen Morvay, who will be sworn in later down on the agenda. So special welcome to Steve this evening. At this time, I'll entertain a motion to approve the agenda.
Josh, so moved.
Amanda, second.
Any discussion on the agenda and the addendum? Hearing none, voting to approve the agenda and the addendum as presented. All in favor, please say aye.
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 Opposed, nay. The motion carries. I'll entertain a motion to approve the minutes from the February 15th regular board meeting, March 18th Buildings and Grounds Committee, work session, and special board meetings.
Amanda, so
Steve,
moved.
so moved.
Nicole, second.
Any correction to the minutes as presented on the agenda? Hearing none, voting to approve the minutes as presented on the agenda. All in favor, please say aye.
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 Opposed, nay. Motion carries. Thank you. At this time, the chair recognizes Superintendent of Schools, Mr. Ken Berlin, for our school reports. Mr. Berlin.
Thanks, Dr. Pushchak. We have a special guest with us tonight as a panelist. That's Mr. Sam Rao. He's a science teacher at the middle school. And if you didn't catch it last week, he was awarded the Golden Apple Award through Edinburgh and WJET. He's one of many of our teachers that have won the Golden Apple Award. We have a great staff. But he does some unique things in the classroom, and he's going to talk about one of his projects he has going with the students tonight.
Mr. Semerau, you are recognized with the board's congratulations for your most recent Golden Apple Award. The board is very proud of all of our employees, but particularly the employees that win the Golden Apple. So that's very special to you, and thank you for representing your students, your school, and our district. And without further ado, you're on.
Thank you so much. I appreciate that. What an honor and what a humbling experience as well. So I appreciate all of that. And as all of us do that are on this, and anyone's listening, we don't do this for us. We do this for these children. So I've got some wonderful children here behind me. Tonight I have with me Angel Troutman, Caitlin Goshling, and Isabella Black. And one of the projects that I do in 7th grade science is we participate with the Pennsylvania Fish and Boat Commission in a program called Trout in the Classroom. The Fish and Boat Commission provides us with eyed-up trout eggs, fish food, through several grants. Almost 10 years ago now, we were able to get a Trout in the Classroom aquarium, the chiller that keeps the water at 55 degrees, and the other things that go with the aquarium, including the bikini bottom motif you see at the bottom of I'll show you at the bottom of the aquarium. But one of the projects that the students are required to do if they want to go on the field trip to release the trout in May is they have to do some kind of project. PowerPoint, video, drawings. I've got all kinds of projects around my room. So Angel and Isabella and Caitlin determined they wanted to do a video. So if I could share my screen and I will show that video to you, and then I'll let them, you can ask them some questions and they can speak a little bit. They're a little bit nervous, but I told them just relax and pretend like they're in my classroom. So we'll just do that. So I'm going to share my screen and show the video they put together.
Hi, Elizabeth. Hi, I'm Caitlin, and this is our Traveling Classroom video. Cool, because you get to watching the different types of chat filters. Chat in the classroom. I don't know, I want to see the girl. Learn about that. All the different kinds. Having developed for what time. And what are you most excited to learn about the channel? How their colors change and how they act. And two chat, what would you name them?
I named my two trout, Gary and Larry.
Two trouts, what would you name them? Louie and Bob, like actually. What would you name them? Alvin and Simon. If you're two trout, what would you name them? Louie and Bob. I would name mine Lucky and Holbert. I would name mine Ruby and Dusty.
And there you have it.
Very nice video, girls.
Thank you.
Thank you.
And that was all them. I mean, they came to me and really all they asked Mr. Sam, because I asked if I could share, if they could share with me what their project is. And that's really all I did was say, yeah, that sounds like a great project. So this was all them. Those were all their ideas to come up with interviewing people. And if you had to try, what would you name them? And so interesting project. Thanks for letting us share with you tonight. We appreciate it.
Are there any questions from the board for Mr. Semiron, his three etiologists?
I just wanted to thank Mr. Samron and his students for sharing a little bit of what you do every day in the classroom. We really appreciate that. And I think I've told Mr. Samron this before. I particularly appreciate the Trout in the Classroom program because I'm an avid fly fisher. I love to go fishing for trout and the steelhead in the local streams. So thanks for that.
So real quick, girls, where do we go from here? What's the time frame? When are you going to release the trout? What do you hope to do?
In May.
Okay, very good. Any other questions from the board?
Dr. Pushak, this is Amanda.
Yes, Mrs. Farrell.
Ladies, great job. Also, thank you for including other students in the school. I think that's super cool that you included them in your project. And I understand that the fifth graders are also coming up and looking at the trout as they're growing. So that's super cool too. Where are you going to release them?
They don't know this.
Oh, it's okay. If you can't tell, it's okay.
No, we can tell you. They just don't know that information. There's down in Union City, about 3 miles west of Union City, there's actually Town Line Road down there where the Fish and Boat Commission stocks the fish. That's where we'll put them. But this is not a stocking program. We get the we get to watch an entire life cycle, or most of a life cycle of a trout. When we got them, you saw the eyed up egg. So it's a really neat project, and they're excited every day to come in and see how many more there are, how many more there aren't. So thank
Very
you for
cool.
thank you for letting us do this, and open invitation to come visit anytime you want. And I mean that. Maybe not just an open invitation, but a challenge. Come visit these kids. Come visit our classrooms. See what we're doing. We appreciate all your help and support. Thank you.
Well, thank you very much. And that's the most favorite part of our school board meetings, is highlighting and showcasing the great things that our students do. So once again, well done, girls. And thank you, Mr. Semmerall. Okay, Mr.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Thank you.
Thank you.
So Dr. Pushchak, I had asked Mrs. Kelly to put together some data regarding student performance. And that's something we've been monitoring all year. And we lost a lot of time last spring. And some of the kids had a slow start to the school year while we were in yellow. So we've been trying to assess the students with various probes and assessments so that we have an idea of where students are and what we need to do to get them where they need to be. So I'll turn this over to Mrs. Kelly.
All right, thank you. Typically, this presentation is done in the fall when we receive PSSA and Keystone results back from the state. Unfortunately, as a result of COVID last year, we were not able to do a second round of Keystones or our PSSA tests. So really what we're looking at this year is our CDT data. So just a little bit of information for those of you that aren't familiar with the CDTs. It is a diagnostic exam. We administer it in 3rd grade through the high school for reading and math, as well as science right now in 4th and 8th grade. And then we'll be doing 2nd grade at the end of this year as well. We give it 3 times. Because it's a diagnostic, its level of difficulty, the questions, which are done on a computer, get increasingly difficult or increasingly easy based on the student responses. So it really gives us an opportunity to kind of pinpoint where our students are struggling in regards to our standards and our assessment anchors. Because it's developed by the state, we know the questions are very similar to what they're going to be seeing on the state assessments. It's a good indicator of growth. So that's very helpful administratively as well for our teachers. And in looking at the PSSA and Keystone, really the Keystone, if you think about a high jump, the Keystone and the PSSA is they're looking at whether or not students can make that jump. And there's no wiggle room in it. They're either able to make that jump and they're considered proficient or advanced, or they're not able, and that's where we see the below basic and basic. It's only given 1 time per year. And bear with me, it's a standards-based criterion referenced assessment. So going back to that high jump reference, the questions are tied directly to the grade level standards. So where a CDT will adjust with the student and give us grade specific feedback and where they're performing on grade level standards, the PSSA and Keystone just lets us know whether or not they're able to achieve those grade level Keystone or those grade level standards. So
Mrs. Kelly?
Yes.
If I could just jump in, I know there's a lot of technical terminology here, but just as a further analogy that might help you understand, a criterion reference test, the best example is the driver's license test, right? You have to demonstrate that you have a certain level of skills before you're awarded a driver's license. And that's the way our standard based PSSA tests are. They're designed through a process called benchmarking to tell us where students are for sure, what their skill level is. That's different than the other type of standardized testing, which many of us are familiar with, which is norm referenced based testing. And a norm referenced based test just compares you to everybody else that's taken that particular test. A good example would be the IQ test. Your intelligence quotient is compared to all the other people that in the sample size that have taken the IQ test. So I thought I'd just add that little explanation.
Thank you. And because we are able to give the CDT test 3 times per year, we're able to measure growth across grade levels, across buildings, and across specific content areas as well, which is very helpful. So in looking at our English language arts, I broke the data down by building because the scores get progressively higher or are expected to get higher as students move through the grade levels. I figured it would be easier to compare each building in its entirety from where it was last year in performance to where it is this year in performance on the CDTs. So if you remember last year, we were on an intensive block at Seneca. So in ELA, here's where we came in the fall of 1920. And by the end of that first semester, which would equate to now 1 year of instruction, here's where our students ended that first semester prior to taking the Keystone exam. You can see now winter, which we took this around November, here's where our students are performing. So looking at this year,
Can somebody let him in up there?
Despite some of the interruptions and things that we've had due to COVID, our students are actually performing better this year than they had last year on our CDT exams. Very similar results in English language arts for WAMs. You see here we were last year, here we're scoring this year. And I'd like everyone to take into account as well, this is without our 7th and 8th grade scores because they too were on remote learning in the fall. So, and those 7th and 8th grade scores would have actually boosted that average higher because being a growth measure, their scores, their standard scores would have been higher than where we'd expect them in the 5th and 6th grade. And again, very similar results in Wake. And I'm going to get to why some of those, I believe we're seeing some of that growth a little later in the presentation. Here you can see our math scores. A major or prime difference between math and reading, I know you, those parents out there will understand, where in ELA, we're practicing essentially very similar skills with higher levels of complexity when it comes to text. As students move up through the grade level, math, the skills really build upon each other. So when a student comes in, say in 4th grade, we don't necessarily expect, or we wouldn't expect them to have the scores or the skills necessary to move through that curriculum just yet. We know we need to build upon their knowledge in order to raise those scores. So they do start out a little lower here in WAMS, again, without our 7th and 8th grade scores. And then increasingly, you know, we're looking for them to improve. So you can see where we are there for math. So different things that have led, I think, to some of the increases that we're seeing. Prior to me starting, Eureka rolled out in 2015. It was adopted to be rolled out in K through 8. We're still in the process of rolling that out. In 2015 through 2019, curriculum started being entered into Rubicon Atlas, and there were a lot of attention was paid to where gaps are occurring and just what are our teachers doing in the classroom and getting it written in a location that everyone has access to. The administrative team started conducting walkthroughs and identifying strengths and weaknesses and what they're seeing in the classroom with regards to instructional strategies. In 2019 and 2020, we adopted EL, which is an ELA program in 5th and 6th grade. One of the things that we noticed in documenting the curriculum was teachers were working very hard creating their own resources and materials. And so what we found in order to build unity and consistency between grade levels and ensure that our resources are at a level of rigor necessary for our students to do well on these standardized assessments, we really needed to look at what programs were out there for English language arts and start adopting those. 1920, again, we continue to roll out with Eureka. So kindergarten began its implementation. Last year also, we started with CDTs, and Study Island was our initial full implementation. Some grade levels, some teachers had kind of dabbled in it before, but last year was the first year where we expected everyone in assessed grade levels and subject areas to assess their students. And we shifted our focus a little bit on the administrative walkthroughs and focus now on identifying specific research-based instructional strategies that we know work in the classroom, and measure their level of rigor. So, we can say a teacher is questioning students, but if they're not questioning students to a level of rigor that's challenging their thinking, and encouraging their communication skills, then it's probably not really where we want it to be. And based on a form that Mr. Berlin developed, we were then able to provide immediate feedback to the staff as we were conducting those walkthroughs. This year, we adopted Foundations K-2. Those of you that will remember, that's our early literacy program, really focuses on decoding and phonics skills. We piloted MyView as an ELA program in K-3, as well as Wit and Wisdom. And the team decided that MyView really was what met the needs of our students. So we've adopted that. EL is now rolled out into 7th grade. So we have that same program. It's already in 4th grade. It's now 5th, 6th, and 7th grade. We've had administrative trainings on Curriculum Writer and Assessment Tracker, which are two tools within our student information system, Sapphire. So when we look at that ease of access, we're all in Sapphire every day, all day with our teachers as well, administration. And so to try and pull all of that into one tool, I think is really going to be helpful long-term. Our high school, 8th grade through 12th grade, piloted StudySync, another ELA program. So to look at consistency in 8th through 12th. Science is looking at piloting in the middle school, 5th and 6th grade this year, a science program. Those standards are going to be updated here. They're expecting by the end of spring. So Mr. Samarow and several of the middle school science teachers approached me about, wanting to start to look at resources now in preparation for that shift. And again, back to assessment data, we started implementing a cadence this year, which is a measure for K-2, and we're also using it in 3rd grade to identify some of our struggling learners, and it measures reading fluency. So we've never before had a tool that measures reading fluency and those early literacy skills as consistently as a cadence does, that we can do across the grade level for all students. Looking into the future, we want to continue to professionally develop our staff. Assessment Tracker, we've started uploading. That's actually where I pulled the data that I shared with you today. We're able to upload all of our student data. So, and parents are able to access that through the community portal. So they're able to see it. Teachers are also able to access it through their grade books. So we want to professionally develop them on how to access that information and how to use it to drive instruction. We're going to start moving our curriculum into our student information system as well. So having it in Rubicon was nice, but it's very challenging for teachers when they're logging into multiple platforms to access all of the information they need to access. And we're really in a digital age. So textbooks, there's just so many materials online right now, as I'm sure many of you know, that the more we can pull it into under one roof, I think the more efficient it will be for our teachers. And from, if we pull the curriculum into Sapphire, teachers are then able to pull specific standards and anchors and resources right into their lesson plans. And it ties into grade books, and it ties into their own teacher created assessments. So, and then we can pull reports from that. So it's really just the beginning of how we're going to be utilizing our student information system. Also, we're working with our administrative team to, they've always set goals, but also reflecting on those goals, utilizing data to drive their decision-making as well. And again, data, I can't say data enough, just are what we do, is what we're doing working. And that's really what we're trying to figure out, is what we're doing working, and data is how we're measured. So, so we're going to continue to push forward with that. And then we also want to further develop our intervention tiers. So the first goal is to really get our core instruction in line. So I use the compass as the background because really, we want to try and get all of our staff moving due north in the same direction. So we're all the same momentum moving kids forward. And then from there, we're going to realize obviously that some of our students aren't able to keep up with our core program. And so what interventions are we then able to put in place to help catch those students up? So this was just a little snippet that I took from School Digger. Unfortunately, you can see it is 2021, but because we don't have any current state assessment data, there's no other dot for current school year. But you can see in this, it's not live because it's a snippet, but if you were to go to schooldigger.com and look at this, it says that we are outperforming 66% of schools across the state. So, and I thought it was interesting, you can kind of see the trend, but it definitely shows that changes are starting to pay off, and it takes time, but we are starting to see a difference. And while the state may measure us on data, our students measure us on relationships. And so just to kind of close this out, I was hoping to share, as Mr. Berlin mentioned, that Mr. Samaro did receive the Golden Apple Award. And so this is just the snippet from his receiving the award, if it will work.
Tonight's Golden Apple Award-winning teacher embarked on a new career.
Can everyone hear that?
Has more.
Mr. Samra, yes. On behalf of Jet 24 and Edinburgh University, you're this week's Golden Apple Award winner.
Great science teacher Paul Samra has been teaching 13 years since retiring from the telephone company.
My wish for their life is to find something they love to do, and hopefully that something turns into a job. But this isn't my job, this is my vocation. I get to teach science, I get to spend my day with some wonderful kids, and they keep me going, so I appreciate them.
And they appreciate him, like Ella Archer, who says he's willing to talk for however long you need about anything.
He's just always there for everyone, and he'll help you with anything you need.
And I always remember the special teachers in my life who took the time to make sure that I got it. I hope to do that same thing, to take time out of my day to take a deep breath and say, okay, how can I touch a student's life who maybe is not getting it?
Teachers plant seeds that last a lifetime, and I think Mr. Samra is definitely planting some seeds that will remain in the lifetime for these students.
If you know a special teacher like Mr. Samra that you'd like to honor, nominate them on the Golden Apple page.
It's not wanting to work. So I really wanted to close on that, just because achievement is our ultimate goal here, but we don't get achievement if we're not building relationships with our students. And so I think it's very obvious, and Mr. Samaros, it's a very good example. That's it.
Thank you very much, Mrs. Kelly, and thank you for reminding us of what we're doing at the heart of everything to analyze and assess student assessment achievement, student achievement data to move our students forwards and to analyze what we're doing. That is the heart of what we do, and it is encouraging to see that all of your efforts and our efforts are paying off. So thank you for that. Any questions from the board for Mrs. Kelly?
I had a couple questions, Mr. Pushek.
Yes, Mr. Blazer.
Becca, was the School Digger data based on our standardized tests or the one of the standardized assessments? Is that where they calculate that at?
Yes, the standardized test, PSSAs and Keystones.
And it looked to me from the bar graphs you had shown that the third time frame, I want to say, was like fall, but I wasn't sure if that was this previous fall. It looked like a dip. And is that just a normal summer slide that students lose some content knowledge over the course of the previous assessment until their first one of a new school year?
Yeah, we would expect typically some summer slide in those scores. But at the middle school specifically, because we did not have, we were comparing an entire building's worth of scores from the fall of last year to only 5th and 6th grade. So where a standard score for a 5th grader in ELA might be 920. That standard score for a 7th grader might be 1,005. And so the building average looks like it may have been lower at the middle school because we did not include the 7th and 8th grade scores in that average in the fall, if that makes sense.
Sure. So we're not comparing apples to apples there because the
For
different
the middle school, correct.
populations. And then last thing was, I know that some of the additional dollars that look like they're coming our school district's way from the federal government were targeting, loss of knowledge or I forget the exact terminology, but basically helping students that maybe are not achieving academically because of COVID related issues. So were you going to talk about that later, or is someone going to talk about, I was just interested, since it seems like it's tied to this topic, what we might be using those funds for or how we might be helping those students.
I can jump in there just real quick. The estimate that we got for this third stimulus is around $2 million, and we will have several years to spend that. And there's a percentage which works out to $405,000, I believe, that we must use to recoup student learning. So once we get the final spending parameters there, we'll come to the board. We'll probably have some proposals for some programs. I would imagine we'd be spending on tutoring and additional summer programming. That's a big project, but we're going to have a lot of resources to make sure the students are where they need to be.
And I would imagine, Mr. Blazer, once we get more information, that'll be shared with the board as to particular programs and plans that we have, because it is probably going to be a pretty robust program for the summer. So Mrs. Kelly, thank you again. Mr. Berlin, anything else for school reports?
That's all we had for tonight, Dr. Pushchak.
Okay, thank you. That will bring us to guest and citizens comment. We have one person signed up to speak this evening, and that's Danny Carter, who will have 10 minutes. Mr. Carter, once you're on, you're recognized for 10 minutes.
There we go. Can you guys hear me?
Yes, go ahead. Welcome, Mr. Carter.
Thank you. First, I'd like to, Danny Carter, 14370 Lowville Street, Wattsburg, PA, 16442. I'd like to congratulate Mr. Semrau. Great job. I mean, you are an awesome teacher. I know the kids have noticed that. That's the reason you got the golden apples. That's awesome. We need a lot more teachers like you in the district. So congratulations on that. Also, great job on that presentation. It was really knowledgeable to see where some of the statistics are and where it's coming from and what certain grades are doing. So good job on that one as well. I do want to say, as I was going back from last year or last week's meeting, I do recall back in 2006, a teacher at Seneca High School was arrested, convicted of soliciting sex to a minor, and sentenced. So that's where my concerns are coming from the incident that happened in the restroom. That's where the complaint's coming from, and that's where it should be investigated. You can't be unbiased on your investigation. Somebody outside personnel who could be unbiased should do the investigation and do a job completely and thoroughly, because it's not a conspiracy theory. It's none of that. If it happened, it should be looked into. Regardless on what student said it, it should be looked into and it should be investigated by someone who's actually going to take the time to do the job and do it correctly and not just say, oh, it's a conspiracy theory. Because also last week, we were told by somebody that my claim that I had filed on this conspiracy theory was already investigated by the state. The state cleared the school of all accusations. But unfortunately, I didn't file that paperwork yet. I was waiting on 2 signatures from the parents before I could file that paperwork. So I don't know how you were cleared by the state and it was investigated if it was my accusation or if it was the accusations that I had presented. I don't see how you guys cleared it or how it was cleared if I didn't file it yet. So I would like to know how that happened, because either somebody else filed a similar complaint or somebody wasn't telling us the truth on what's actually going on here. Either way, something should be looked into, because if somebody's not telling us what is the facts, that's wrong. And if somebody filed a similar complaint and now you have 2 complaints of the same thing, it definitely should be investigated at this point. So I don't know how you guys want to handle that, but somewhere along the lines, communications are not being told 110%, and that's not right. That doesn't go. I don't like this gray area. I know you guys like running. That's a gray area. That's a gray area. I don't like gray areas. Rules are in black and white. That's black and white for a reason. Not your guys' comprehension of gray areas. It's not acceptable. That's why there's state laws and everything supersedes federal laws, so on and so forth. So I don't know how you guys want to handle that, but something needs to be actually looked into. Whether there was another case that happened and now you have 2 cases on this, that okay, you should investigate it. Or if there was no case and somebody told us that my case was already dismissed, but yet it never was submitted, I want to know why that was. Because somebody's telling you guys some wrong information. And if you're getting wrong information, you're passing wrong information on to everybody else. So you may want to start looking into it. You may want to start thinking things over, because obviously there's miscommunications a lot going around here. So on that note, we're going to go over to the baseball budget for, every week. I'm going to do it every board meeting. You got to back it. If you want the kids to stay in the programs, if you want to do it, you got to show the interest. You got to put some money up. Give the baseball 7th and 8th grade. You have volleyball. Everybody has a budget. I know they're not school affiliated, but we play 20. There's 25 teams total in the baseball side. 25. Out of those 25 teams, there's 22 different school districts that are actually signed up to play in this. They play 6 games. Thankfully, and thank you guys for letting us use the fields and to use the facilities for the younger kids. That is awesome. Greatly appreciated. Now we need you. The coaches do the greatest job passing down uniforms. But when you got a 7th and a 6th grader wearing a 9th grader's jersey, they really don't fit that well. So it would be awesome if they could get some type of budget, and it doesn't have to be huge at first. I mean, we are trying to do fundraisers and things like that to support it, because we are trying to put our buck in too. We're not looking just for a handout, but it would be nice to get a helping hand in this, so we can build the sports program, so you can have a varsity and a JV baseball team. So now you're having more kids participating in these sports and playing on the fields that you guys put in. You did a great job building the fields. Now let's do another great job and start filling the spots and filling the teams up to where they need to be. Having a varsity, having a JV team. Because without having those players, these fields are worthless. They're just for show. We don't need them just for show. We want the kids to participate in this stuff, and we want to try to excel at it. And even if we don't excel to winning state district titles, who cares? As long as the kids are playing and having fun, it's keeping them out of trouble, and they're learning something. They're learning the sportsmanship. They're learning the game. They're learning characteristics and all that stuff. So let's try and look in to see what we can do. I know we got a lot of bright individuals on the board, how we could make some cuts here, or not cuts, make some wiggle room to where we can give $1,000 this year for the baseball team and $1,000 for the softball team or something like that. I'm just throwing out numbers, obviously. But I know there's a lot of individuals up there that I think we can figure it out. I know everybody, most of them have kids that are played sports or have played sports. So I'm pretty sure we can do something with that, because that would be awesome. And that would show the school is starting to back more of the sports up. So I think that would go a long way. Also, you know, my activity buses, that's another one. We get the kids on the activity buses, that relieves a lot of stress off the parents. And I think they'd be more willing to have their kids play, because, you know, without the kids playing, there's no sports. But other than that, I want to say great job again on that presentation. That really was a nice breakdown on showing where we stand as a whole and some of the grades and all that stuff. So that was awesome, phenomenal. Thank you. I really appreciate seeing that, listening to it. Other than that, let's try and get some funding done for baseball and softball, and let's see what we can do about getting some activity buses. Thank you guys for listening. Have a great night.
Thank you, Mr. Carter, for your remarks. There are no other citizens that had signed up to address the board this evening, so we will move on with our agenda. And the next item, the chair recognizes Mr. Ken Berlin for superintendent's report. Mr. Berlin.
Thanks, Dr. Pushchak. My report will be brief. Actually, a lot of just good news. A break from a year of really big challenges. So here's the dashboard. Still hovering in that substantial area just by the incident rate alone at this point. But that's good news. It's not going back up. Quarantined people in the past 14 days, only 7. And we only have 3 people currently quarantining. And I worked with LECOM, the health department, and the intermediate unit to make sure all of our teachers that wanted to get vaccinated could get into the queue. So this past weekend, we had approximately 140 staff, including our bus drivers from Durham, vaccinated. About 90 of those folks got the Johnson & Johnson, the 1 shot. And then the other 50 or so went to a separate clinic by the Bayfront, and they were able to get their first either Moderna or Pfizer shot, and they've already been scheduled for follow-ups. So there really is light at the end of the tunnel here. Getting our staff inoculated is really going to ensure that we can stay open as long as possible. Hopefully get the school year wrapped up in a more normal fashion, better than last year. And then here's that in-person instruction. You can see our track record there. And I get this statistic once a week. You can still see that only 25% of school districts in Pennsylvania are full in person. We're included in that. And you can still see that, 75% are either not in school or remote or some mixture of the two. So again, kudos to our staff for keeping our kids safe. Kudos to the parents and the students for all their preventative mask wearing and social distancing. It's made a difference for us. Now this is just that weekly graphic. You can see again numbers on the down low. Same with the sewage numbers. So Erie County as a whole is improving, and you can see cases are way down, only 273 from 411. And then zone 4. Continues to hover around that 13%. And of course, that's not an accurate reflection of our entire district, as I've said many times. And then if we were to get 50 people together at a sporting event or some other type of event, it'd be a 27% chance that there'd be a 1 positive case. So again, that continues to drop, which is really great news. So that is all I had for my report this evening.
Thank you, Mr. Berlin, for keeping us appraised of the situation, and we hope those numbers continue to go down. And thank you for your report. At this time, the chair recognizes Mrs. Vicky Bendig for the Business Administrator's Report. Mrs. Bendig.
Thank you, Dr. Pushchak. For tonight, I have the balance of the reports that weren't ready from last week. General Fund Treasurer's Report, cash in the bank as of February 28th, 2021, $10,902,717.27. And this evening, I have the year-to-date budget versus actual report. Just like to mention that we're about 67% of the fiscal year finished. These numbers are as of the end of February. We've had almost 98% of the budgeted real estate tax come in, and total revenue for the district is at 71%. So still tracking right along where we should be with the revenue. We're hoping to start seeing some of that grant money come in as we are making expenditures. The grants have been approved, but we've not received a lot of the funding as of yet. So moving on to expenses, again, 67% of the year. There are not a lot of categories that are no categories are overspent. I'm still in the process of trying to move some special ed functions into the sub functions. So I'll probably have, that's actually, and the business department, that's supposed to be, according to PDE, it's supposed to be separated out into sub accounts, not all to 2,500. So I'm in the process of moving that as well. And as you can see at the end of the report, we've spent about 49% of our budgeted expenditures for the year. So on the budgetary transfer for tonight, there are a lot of transfers that are just moving from 1,200 to 1,211, or it was originally budgeted to one function and we're splitting it out into a sub account. So if anyone has any questions when we get to that part, please let me know. Moving along to the cafeteria report. Oh, sorry, capital projects, cash in that account. I'm sorry, I lost my place. Cash in the capital projects account, $17.84. That's as of the end of February. Cafeteria, that account has $143,243.55. And the cafeteria profit and loss report, this is for the month of February. We had $119,579.16 in revenue and about $75,663.58 in expenses, for a net profit of the month of $43,915.58, which brings our year-to-date profit to $96,707.30 in the cafeteria. Moving on to the bill list, Exhibit A1, checks written between the last board meeting and the work session, $33,655.89. Checks written since the work session, $22,351.19. The general fund bills for the month, $383,045.86. Cafeteria bills for the month, $42,989.75. And there is $77,376.35 in the Seneca High School Activity Fund. All that I have for this evening.
Thank you, Madam Business Administrator. At this time, I'll entertain a motion to approve the reports, payments, and invoices as presented.
This is Marty, so moved.
Josh, second.
Thank you. Any discussion or questions for the Business Administrator from her report?
Josh, I have two questions.
Yes, Mr. Paris.
So I see we're running a substantial profit in the cafeteria. What do we do with that money at the end of the year?
So money that is made or generated in the cafeteria can only be spent in the cafeteria. So I'm having Amanda Onley, who is the food service director from the nutrition group, look at some of our equipment and make sure that it is usable and efficient for the staff in the cafeteria. And if we need to get something new or improved or replace some equipment, we're going to try and do that. Also, with the summer school program that is coming up, we will probably be doing, and we had an extension from the USDA for food service. We will be allowed to continue serving meals through September. So I'm looking to have some staff come in over the summer to prepare meals and distribute it to families and those that are coming for credit recovery and summer school. We did not do that last year because we didn't have the money to pay the staff. So I'm hoping that we'll be able to use some of that profit to pay the staff so that we can continue to feed the kids.
And my second question is, how long is the federal government going to reimburse the school district for lunches and breakfast?
So as of right now, that waiver has been extended through the 30th of September. So our students will continue to eat free breakfast and lunches through the end of September. And I don't know what's going to happen after that. They just made that announcement last week. So that's where we're at for right now.
Thank you.
Any further discussion or questions based upon the business administrator's report? Hearing none, voting to approve the report, payments and invoices as presented. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. The motion carries, and I thank Mrs. Bendig for her report this evening. Okay, let's turn the lights up. Now's the time. We will have the oath of office for Mr. Stephen Morvay. Traditionally, Steve, you'd come to the front of the table and I'd ask you to raise your hand, but let's do it from where we're at right now. So you can see that the oath of office is on the board. So I just ask you to please repeat after me. I do solemnly swear
I do solemnly swear
that I will support, obey, and defend
that I will support, obey, and defend
the Constitution of the United States
the Constitution of the United States
and Constitution of this Commonwealth,
and Constitution of this Commonwealth,
and that I will discharge the duties of my office with fidelity.
and that I will discharge the duties of my office with fidelity.
Congratulations, you're officially sworn in. Virtual handshake, congratulations.
Thank you.
Are going to be a welcomed addition to this board, and we look forward to helping you in any way we can, and we thank you for your willingness to serve the students and the families of this community. So congratulations on your oath of office.
Thank you again.
At this time, I'll entertain a motion to appoint the law firm of Kuhar Law LLC with Mr. Mark Kuhar as the labor relations solicitor for the 2020-2021 fiscal year as outlined in Exhibit E.
Amanda, so moved.
Jeremy, second.
Thank you. Any discussion on the appointment of Mark Kuhar for School District Labor Council? Hearing none, voting to approve LA2. All in favor, please say aye.
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 Opposed, nay. Motion carries. That is all I have under legal advisement this evening. The chair recognizes Mr. Marty Pushchak for finance. Mr. Pushchak.
Thank you, Mr. President. Two items under finance tonight, beginning with F1 regarding transfers. We'll be looking to approve the following transfers of the monthly budgetary transfers from the budget versus actual report as outlined in Exhibit F as in Frank, and then also from the general fund reserve to capital funds in the amount of $900,000 for the elementary heat pump project. So moved.
Josh, second.
Thank you. Any discussion on transfers under F1? Hearing none, may we have a roll call, please, Madam Secretary, on F1, the transfer approvals, please?
Mr. Pushchak,
Yes.
Mr. Blazer,
Yes.
Mrs. Farrell,
Yes.
Mrs. Lee,
Yes.
Mr. Mattson,
Yes.
Mr. Morvay,
Yes.
Mr. Paris,
Yes.
Mrs. Pound,
Yes.
Dr. Pushchak.
Yes, the motion carries. Thank you.
Next, F2 regarding the Northwest Tri-County Intermediate Unit budget for the 21-22 school year. Again, motion to approve the Northwest Tri-County Intermediate Unit General Operating Budget for the 21-22 school year in the amount of $62,555,592, and to further approve the Wattsburg Area School District's contribution to the School Improvement Services Fund 020 budgets of the intermediate unit for the 21-22 fiscal year in the amount of $37,280.06 and $160,865 to the Special Education Services Consortium Fund 23. So moved.
Josh, second.
Thank you. As I mentioned last week, there is no change in the district's contribution from last year to this year, so we're remaining the same with the district contribution. Any further discussion on F2, the IU budget? Hearing none, Madam Secretary, may we have a roll call, please, for F2, the IU budget?
Mr. Pushcheck,
Yes.
Mr. Blazer,
Yes.
Mrs. Farrell,
Yes.
Mrs. Lee,
Yes.
Mr. Mattson,
Yes.
Mr. Morvay,
Yes.
Mr. Paris,
Yes.
Mrs. Pound,
Yes.
Dr. Pushcheck.
Yes, the motion carries.
That's all I have tonight under finance, Mr. President.
Thank you, Mr. Pushcheck. The chair recognizes Mr. Josh Paris for Buildings and Grounds. Mr. Paris.
Thank you, Mr. President. 3 items on the agenda and addendum. We'll start with B1, motion to approve the Wattsburg Area Elementary Center Heat Pump Replacement Project as outlined in Exhibit G.
That's in the form of,
Jeremy.
is there a second?
Second, Jeremy.
Thank you. Any discussion on B1, the Elementary Center Heat Pump Replacement Project? Hearing none, may we have a roll call, please, on B1, Elementary Center Heat Pump Replacement Project?
Mr. Paris,
Yes.
Mrs. Pound,
Yes.
Mr. Pushcheck,
Yes.
Mr. Blazer,
Yes.
Mrs. Farrell,
Yes.
Mrs. Lee,
Yes.
Mr. Mattson,
Yes.
Mr. Morvay,
Yes.
Dr. Pushcheck.
Yes, motion carries. Thank you.
Item B2 on the addendum, the Wattsburg Area Elementary Center classroom space lease, to approve the lease between the Northwest Tri-County Intermediate Unit and the Wattsburg Area School District for the rental of Wattsburg Area School District space, July 1, 2021 through June 30th, 2021, as outlined in Attachment 1. So moved.
Is there a second?
Nicole, second.
Thank you. Can we double check those dates?
It should be to the June 30th, 2022.
Okay. Without objection, we'll make that correction in the motion. Any further discussion on the classroom lease space? Hearing none, voting to approve. All in favor, please say aye.
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 Opposed, nay. Motion carries.
And finally, B3, facility use requests, motion to approve the facility request use for the athletic complex by Q Sports League, Fridays and Saturdays for flag football, April 16th through June 19th, 2021. 2 hours a day at an estimated cost of $1,800. So move.
Jeremy, second.
Thank you. Any discussion on B3 facility use request?
Hi, this is Tara. I do have a question on this one.
Yes, Mrs. Pound.
Are we going around schedules for our sports? So this Q Sports won't interfere with anything that we have going on?
This is Mr. Carter. Can I?
Yes, Mr. Carter, go ahead. Thank you.
Yes, we are going around the team schedules. That's one of the reasons why it said Friday/Saturday is he just wanted to get it approved this board meeting because they would like to start in April. And then we will finish out the schedule once we check our schedule, and he needs to check with his teams to see if they could all come either Friday evenings or what times on Saturdays. So, but yeah, our athletes will obviously get preference.
Okay, thank
Mr.
you.
Carter, could you please provide just a brief overview of the Q Sports League? Is this adults or youth?
It is adults. The Q, I think, stands for Quigley. It's Shane Quigley. He's an alumni.
Oh, okay.
He is running. Yeah, he's running the league. He had used other facilities in the past, but obviously being an alumni and being in the area, he would like to use our facility.
Okay, thank you very much for responding to those questions. We appreciate it, Mr. Carter. Anything else under B3 facilities use request? Hearing none, voting to approve B3. All in favor, please say aye.
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 Opposed, nay.
Nay.
Motion carries.
That's all I have this evening.
Thank you, Mr. Paris. The chair recognizes Mr. Jeremy Blazer for personnel. Mr. Blazer.
Thank you, Mr. President. We have a number of items on the agenda as well as the addendum. P1, Kelly substitute additions to approve Yvonne Bentley and Jennifer Lau as additions to the Kelly Education Staffing Substitute List as outlined. So moved.
McCall, second.
Thank you. Any discussion on P1 Kelly substitute additions? Hearing none, voting to approve P1. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye. Aye.
Opposed, nay. Motion carries.
P2, leave request to approve leave of absence utilizing family medical leave of absence and sick personal time for Dana Miller beginning August 31st, 2021. And if you give me a minute, I think there's one on the addendum.
There is one on the addendum. It's addition of Cheryl Elder.
Yes, the addition of Cheryl Elder. I can't see it on the screen when I'm talking, so we'll go with approving her leave of absence as well.
Okay, any discussion on P2 as presented on the agenda and the addendum? Leave requests. Hearing none, voting to approve P2 as listed on the agenda and the addendum. All in favor, please say aye.
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 Opposed, nay. Motion carries.
Andy,
Yes,
Dr. Pushchak, could I have who second that?
yes. Was there a second to Mr. Blazer's motion? Was it Mrs. Farrell?
I feel like I said yes.
I feel like you did too.
Yes.
Okay, thank you.
P3, resignation to accept the resignation of Kathleen Noonan, cafeteria aide, effective March 8th, 2021.
Amanda, second.
Thank you. Any discussion on P3, resignation? Hearing none, voting to approve P3. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. Motion carries.
And then P4, conference requests to approve Eric Schultz to attend the PASBO annual conference virtually in March at an estimated cost of $200, funds from maintenance. And Shelby Chesko to attend the Pennsylvania Association of School Resource Officers in July at a cost of $275, funds from non-instructional, non-certificate professional development.
In the form of a motion, do we have a second?
Second.
Thank you. Any discussion on conference requests, P4 on the agenda and the addendum?
Hi, this is Tara. I do have a question in
Yes,
general.
Mrs. Pound.
With us saving money, I'm assuming we save money from people not going to conferences in person for travel and food, etc. Can we see a comparison from when we were and having people go in person versus virtually? Like how much are we saving in that space?
I'm sure Mrs. Bendig can put something together for next month, or would that be okay?
Yep.
Thank you. Is that okay, Mrs. Bendig?
Yes, sir.
Okay, thank you. Any further discussion on P4 conference requests? Hearing none, voting to approve P4 on the agenda and the addendum. All in favor, please say aye.
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 Opposed, nay. Motion carries.
And P5, a motion for tuition reimbursement to approve the tuition reimbursements as outlined on attachment 2.
Josh, second.
Thank you. Any discussion on P5 tuition reimbursements on the addendum? Hearing none, voting to approve P5 tuition reimbursements as presented on the addendum. All in favor, please say aye.
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 Opposed, nay. Motion carries. Thank you, Mr.
That's all I
Blazer.
have tonight.
Yep, thank you. The chair recognizes Mrs. Amanda Farrell for policy. Mrs. Farrell.
Thanks, Dr. Pushak. One item tonight, PL1, the policy first reading. A motion to approve the first reading of the following policies listed below. So moved.
Josh, second.
Thank you. Any discussion on the first readings of the policies listed on your agenda? Hearing none, voting to approve the first policy readings under PL1 as presented on the agenda. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. Motion carries. Thank you, Mrs. Farrell.
Thank you.
The chair recognizes Mr. Stephen Morvay for curriculum. Mr. Morvay.
Yes, Dr. Pushak, I have 8 items on the agenda and 1 on the addendum for curriculum. Item number C1, motion to approve the following science pilots for Wattsburg Area Middle School for the 2021 school year. Grade 5 Inspire at a cost of $527.73 as outlined in the Exhibit Q, as well as grade 6 iScience at a shared cost of $5,073.75 as outlined in Exhibit R. So moved.
Jeremy, second.
Thank you. Motion and a second. Any discussion on C1? I'd just like to compliment Mr. Morvay on his first motion. Very well done. Let's do that 8 more times. Voting to approve C1. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. Motion carries.
Next item is item C2, Penn State University Memorandum of Agreement. Motion to approve the memorandum of agreement between Penn State University, Wattsburg Area School District for curriculum and instruction field experience, March of this year through March of 2026, as outlined in Exhibit S. So moved.
Marty, second.
Thank you. Any discussion on C2 PSU Memorandum of Agreement? Hearing none, voting to approve C2. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. Motion carries.
Next item is item C3, homebound instruction, to approve homebound instruction for Wattsburg Area Middle School student anticipated beginning March 1st, 2021 through May 31st of 2021. So moved.
Sarah, second.
Thank you. Any discussion on C3 homebound instruction? Hearing none, voting to approve C3. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. The motion carries.
Next item is item C4, approval of academic services. The motion to approve academic services of LearnWell for hospitalized students as followed. Wattsburg Area Middle School, anticipated February 21st through March 3rd. Wattsburg Area Middle School student, March 3rd through March 5th. And a Seneca High School student, March 8th, anticipated through May 16th of this year. So moved.
Sarah, second.
Thank you. Any discussion on C4 approval of academic services? Hearing none, voting to approve C4. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay.
Aye.
Motion carries.
Next item is C5, Intermediate 5 Education Leading to Employment and Career Training Program. Motion to approve the participation of Seneca High School in the IU5 Education Leadership Leading to Employment and Career Training, the ELECT program as outlined in Exhibit T. So moved.
McCall, second.
Thank you. Any discussion on C5, the ELECT program? Hearing none, voting to approve C5. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. Motion carries.
Next item in curriculum, C6, the district plans. Motion to approve the following Wattsburg Area School District plans. First item is the comprehensive plan as noted in Exhibit U. The gifted plan as outlined in Exhibit V. The induction plan clarified in Exhibit W. Professional development as presented in Exhibit X. So moved.
Josh, second.
Thank you. Any discussion on the 4 district plans presented under C6? Hearing none, voting to approve C6. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. Motion carries.
Next item is item C7, approval of alternative education for disruptive youth agreement. Motion to approve the agreement for alternative education for disruptive youth between Bethesda Lutheran Services and Wattsburg Area School District for the 2021-2022 school year as outlined in Exhibit Y. So moved.
Jeremy,
Josh, second.
Thank you. Any discussion on the alternative ed program? Hearing none, voting to approve C7. All in favor, please say aye.
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 Opposed, nay. Motion carries.
Next item is item C8, local education homeless agreement. Motion to approve the local education agency letter of agreement for Pennsylvania's education for youth, children and youth experiencing homelessness as outlined in Exhibit Z. So moved.
Kara, second.
Any discussion on C8, local education homeless agreement? Hearing none, voting to approve C8. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. Motion carries.
And the next item is item on the addendum, C9, digital theater subscription. Motion to approve the subscription to digital theater for Seneca High School for the 21-2022 school year as outlined in attachment 3. So moved.
Jeremy, second.
Thank you. Any discussion on the digital theater subscription? Hearing none, voting to approve C9 as presented on the addendum. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. Motion carries.
Thank you, Dr. Pushak. That's all I have for this evening.
Thank you very much, Mr. Morvay, and job well done. Chair recognizes Mrs. Tara Pound for technology. Mrs. Pound.
Thank you. I have nothing to report this time around.
Thank you, Mrs. Pound. Chair recognizes Mrs. Nicole Lee for transportation. Mrs. Lee.
Thank you, Dr. Pushak. I also have no items for this evening.
And I also thank you. Chair recognizes Mr. Sean Matson for athletic and extracurricular. Mr. Matson.
Thank you, Mr. President. I have 4 items this evening, plus something on the addendum. The first one is AE1, athletic resignation. The motion to accept the resignation of Dana Miller as first assistant cross-country coach effective February 22nd, 2021. So moved.
Jeremy, second.
Thank you. Any discussion on AE1, athletic resignation? Hearing none, voting to approve. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. Motion carries.
AE2, athletic appointment. A motion to approve the following athletic appointments for the 2020-2021 school year. Jerry Adamus as baseball first assistant coach, step 2. And on the addendum, we are adding Alex Hobson as track and field second assistant, 7th and 8th grade jumping at step 1. So moved.
Amanda.
Kara, second.
Thank you. Any discussion on athletic appointment, 1 on the agenda, 1 on the addendum?
Not a question, but I have a comment, Mr. President.
Yes, Mr. Blazer.
I don't know Mr. Adamus, but I do know Mr. Hobson, and I think it's great when we're hiring our alumni. So kudos to Mr. Carter and the coaches on that.
Thank you, Mr. Blazer, for that comment. Any further discussion on AE2, 1 on the agenda, 1 on the addendum? Hearing none, voting to approve AE2. All in favor, please say aye.
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 Opposed, nay. Motion carries.
All right, AE3, the Wattsburg Area School District volunteer. A motion to approve the addition of Yvonne Hamill to the Wattsburg Area School District volunteer list. So moved.
Amanda.
Jeremy, second.
Any discussion on AE3 volunteer list? Hearing none, voting to approve the volunteer list, AE3 as presented on your agenda. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. Motion carries.
All right, AE4, the Finish Links timing system. A motion to approve the purchase of the Finish Links timing system, track and field automated timing system with $14,300 of the purchase funded out of the athletic complex contingency. So moved.
Steve, second.
I'm sorry, we did have a second. Thank you. Any discussion on AE4, the timing system for the new stadium? Hearing none, voting to approve AE4. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. Motion carries.
That's all I have this evening, Mr. President. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mr. Mattson. Appreciate it. One item under miscellaneous, I'll entertain a motion to approve the solicitation and sale of the ROTC Education Tour foreign trip to Ireland and Scotland in June of 2022, provided that all criteria of policy 913 is met. I'll entertain that motion.
Amanda.
Josh, so moved.
Thank you. And a second.
Amanda second.
Thank you. Any discussion on the ROTC request for their trip?
Dr. Pushak, it's Amanda.
Yes, Mrs. Farrell.
I just don't recall when we spoke about it at the work session, solicitation and sale of the ROTC education tour. Just some clarification on what that means.
Who might best speak to that that's on our call tonight?
Attorney McClure, if her microphone's working.
Can you hear me all right?
Yes, we can. Welcome, Mrs.
Yeah, we have a whole policy on foreign travel. And so years ago, this board decided that when foreign trips were being taken, the board wanted to know about it, although it is not a school-sponsored trip. You're not paying your staff to go on it. You're not sending chaperones. You're not directly involved in any way, shape, or form. The policy sets forth certain criteria that this board wanted to know about. For example, is it what type of a tour is it? Do they have insurance? Do they have bonding? Things of that nature, and that's all laid out in your policy. And so, as I say, the board, this is not a school-sponsored trip, but it permits the junior ROTC to go ahead and fundraise, and which I think it's already started to do, and book the trip for next year. Does that answer your question?
It does. Thank you. I just didn't remember seeing it quite like that when we spoke about it last week. So yes, that makes complete sense now. Thank you.
Thank you for your comments and explanation, Attorney McClure. Much appreciated. Any further discussion on M1 AF ROTC education tour? Hearing none, voting to approve M1. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed, nay. Motion carries. Thank you. Chair recognizes Mrs. Nicole Lee for the Erie County Technical School report. Mrs. Lee.
Hi, thank you, Dr. Pushak. So we did go over a little bit last week, but I'll kind of recap of some more information. To start, their business administrator has left. She has taken a new position. So they are currently looking for a new hire to fill her place. We did get to see a very nice video. It was put together by students of ECTS, and several of them were actually Wattsburg students. So we got to see Wattsburg students in action and what they were doing. Most of it was centered around the Child Learning and Development Center. So that was actually really nice to see. As Mr. Berlin mentioned last week, there was a vote. This was at the end of February, so a couple of weeks ago now, to go ahead and move forward with bids. And the result to that was it did pass. However, both Mill Creek and I, as the Wattsburg representative, both voted it down. My reasoning for that was we still do not have financial commitment from Mill Creek. The Mill Creek representative did say that they are committed, that they want the project to happen. But at Mill Creek's last meeting, they actually voted down any type of agreement to continue with funding for the Mill Creek or the ECTS renovation project. So, so they're moving ahead with bids. I don't know, Mr. Berlin, do you have any more information since that meeting occurred?
I haven't received any additional information other than a proposed timeline, which was pretty aggressive. But without that funding commitment from Mill Creek, they're not going to be able to accept any bids. So I'm just concerned that if that board does anything less than reject all the bids, we could have problems with labor and industry. So, but I mean, I'm sure they'll be advised by their solicitor at that time.
Thank you. So our next meeting, I believe, is in 2 Thursdays, so I'll have a further update at the beginning of next month.
Thank you very much, Mrs. Lee, and thank you for voting no on behalf of this board. I do not see how the bidding can be going forward with the funding. I don't understand that. I continue not to understand that, but thank you for continuing to represent us well on that joint operating committee. So thank you.
Thank you.
Mr. President, a question.
Yes, I'm sorry. Any discussion or questions for Mrs. Lee for the Erie Tech School? Mr. Blazer.
Dr. Pushat, this is Steve Morvay.
Yes, 1 second,
So-
Mr. Morvay. Mr. Blazer first, then Mr. Morvay.
Thank you.
Sure. My question is just with the additional dollars that are going to be coming from the federal government. I saw all the districts, getting an R2 million was actually on the low end of what other districts are receiving. Is there any hopes that any of that money could be used toward this renovation project? I don't know if Mr. Berlin would know, not to speak on behalf of Mill Creek, but I wondered, seeing that they were getting in the 8 or 9 million range, could any of their money be used on this kind of project, or is that eligible?
Yeah, well, you can spend the relief funds on a variety of things, one of which is updating HVAC systems. So, the answer there is yes, but Mill Creek would have to spend it on its own HVAC system. It couldn't bequeath federal funding dollars that it receives for its facilities to the joint run operation, if that makes sense.
Yeah, so the building isn't like a joint ownership of all the districts, that they could consider it as part of their renovation projects.
Yeah, it's not permitted. And furthermore, against my advice, they went down the pathway of a traditional project with an architect rather than going with a guaranteed energy savings project, which would have allowed a lot more flexibility. So it's just a big albatross right now, I guess is the best way I can describe it.
Thank you, Mr. Berlin. Mr. Morvay.
Just a little comment regarding the bidding process. It sounds like there was some discussion on how that could potentially move forward without the funding commitment from Mill Creek School. Many times these projects have a clause in their bidding that allows the bids to remain open for up to 60 to 90 days. So whether they're using that as a process to get bids in now and then let the funding scenario work itself out is a possibility, but that is a mechanism that is done during the bidding process to hold bids and allow bids to occur now without some of the fully commitments that we've been discussing.
Thank you for that clarification, Mr. Morvay. Much appreciated. Any further discussion on the Erie County Technical School or questions for Mrs. Lee? Hearing none, I'll thank Mrs. Lee for her report. I'll recognize myself. West Tri-County Intermediate Unit report. You've seen a lot of media. You've heard from Mr. Berlin. Large numbers of educators and educational employees have been getting vaccinated at some mass clinics the last week and continuing this week. So that's exciting news. Our next meeting is Wednesday, March 24th, a week from this Wednesday. So I'll have a report at the April meeting. That concludes my report for the Tri-County Intermediate Unit. It brings us to board correspondence and dialogue. Anything from the board this evening?
Dr. Pushak, it's Amanda. I had one quick
Yes,
question.
Mrs. Farrow, go ahead.
I was going to ask Mrs. Bending, how did the responses come in from the food survey that you had sent out or that went out?
We got about 205 responses. I had sent them just today, actually, over to Amanda for her to look through them. I only looked through them briefly. I did not analyze what the answers were or who wanted what. We're planning to meet to talk about that next week. So I did see there was some people who said, thank you so much for doing it. Some people were like, don't send it home. We don't need the food. And there was a lot of stuff in between. We don't like this, we like that type thing. So
cool, good. Thanks.
Anything else under board correspondence and dialogue tonight?
Josh, I have a
Kuschak, this
comment.
is Steve.
Okay, we'll go Mr. Morvay, then Mr. Paris.
Again, I just wanted to thank the board for this opportunity, for being selected to be on this team. And I look forward to working forward with all of you for the remainder of this term. So again, I appreciate it, and thank you again.
Thank you, Mr. Morvay. Well done. Mr. Paris.
I was wondering if we could have someone in the technology department do a check of the website. I was using it this evening to look at the facility use schedule. When you click on the button, it doesn't even work. So maybe someone could audit the website, make sure buttons are working or not working or are relevant. And I did not see a master schedule for spring sports 2020 on the website. The last update was fall of 2019, and I think that's a useful tool for parents and people in the community.
Thank you, Mr. Paris. Someone on the call will look into that. We appreciate that. Anything else from the board tonight?
Yeah, this is Tara. I have a question.
Yes, Mrs. Pound.
Do we have any update on Jeff Styborski's efforts that he was going after?
Yes, so Jeff and I just finished Friday finalizing the survey. We wanted to pilot it. If you've ever tried to give a good survey, it's difficult to design a good survey. So we piloted it to a handful of people, and we wanted to make sure the branching worked correctly and we were capturing data in the clearest possible way. So our plan is to send that out to all of our families this week sometime.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, anything else? Board correspondence and dialogue tonight? Hearing none, I'll entertain a motion to adjourn.
Josh, so moved.
Nicole, second.
Thank you. All in favor of adjournment, please say aye.
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 Opposed, nay. Motion carries. Everyone have a safe trip home. Good evening, everyone.